One of my earliest memories is of a drawing of a dinosaur in a book of world history. I've been fascinated ever since. The mystery of their leaving, for example. How could anything that dominated the world for 140 million years vanish so suddenly? Well, studying dinosaurs is one of the great adventures of science. And recently, I pursued my childhood curiosity by following one of the strangest investigations yet for this 2020 report. And I found that here, fact is truly stranger than fiction. Daring caveman battles vicious dinosaur. There's nothing wrong with this scene, except it never happened. It couldn't have happened. Dinosaurs died out 55 million years before the ancestors of early man. Yet they still seem to be everywhere. On a hilltop overlooking Rapid City, South Dakota, they are smiling concrete statues, inviting kids to play. Dinosaurs are on candy, game cards, and all sorts of other toys. They have such enduring appeal that their whole world has been brought to life at Disney's Epcot Center. Over the years, scientists have learned so much about dinosaurs that today's recreation of them is much more accurate than the first crude representations at amusement parks during Queen Victoria's reign. The first dinosaur remains weren't identified until 1822, and it was 20 years before the creatures got their name dinosaur from the Latin dino, meaning terrible, and saurus, meaning lizard. As the flurry of new dinosaur books this winter indicates, our knowledge of dinosaurs is still growing. New discoveries are challenging some of the old assumptions. For instance, we've all seen dinosaurs drag their tails on the ground, but did they? Paleontologist Jack Horner of Montana State University has been collecting dinosaurs since he was a boy. He says it's time we revise our ideas about how dinosaurs moved.
You go to a museum, you see a dinosaur, and it's standing up very high. It's got its tail on the ground. That's wrong. The thing is that the dinosaur did not walk upright. It walked parallel to the ground with its head sticking out ahead of it and the tail neatly behind it.
Even Tyrannosaurus rex, the most ferocious dinosaur.
Absolutely. Walked on its hind legs, was parallel to the ground. They lived 140 million years, and they didn't do it by dragging their tails around.
That means, odd as it may seem, this is what a herd of dinosaurs looked like. Dinosaurs had two different styles of hips. Some were like reptiles, and some like birds. There's a relatively new theory that dinosaurs may be the ancestors of modern birds.
Scientists have never found the fully fleshed out remains of a dinosaur. After all, they became extinct 60 million years ago. So just exactly what these animals looked like is all an educated guess based on a knowledge of anatomy and how contemporary animals are put together.
Scientists aren't guessing when they say all dinosaurs laid eggs. Eggs with a yolk and a white, just like modern reptiles and birds. But were they immense, as in this movie? Not quite. Every dinosaur egg found so far could easily be carried by one man, even the eggs of big dinosaurs. Now, most of the dinosaur eggs in the world have been found in the United States. Whole nests of eggs, their shells fractured as the babies hatched, preserved for millions of years by some accident of nature. In Montana, there is what may be the richest dinosaur site in the world. Mick Hager, director of the Museum of the Rockies.
Here in one place, you've got the whole story, the opportunity to learn what it was truly like in a year of a dinosaur 80 million years ago.
So much of Montana is picture postcard beautiful that it's a bit of a shock to discover that the dinosaur site is on rocky terrain that only a hungry cow or a paleontologist could love. The climate is not much friendlier. The high winds and extreme temperatures make most tents uninhabitable. So the researchers at the site live in teepees for the 3 months they spend here each year. Paleontology is tedious work, but at this site in the middle of the summer digging season, at least the rewards are frequent. With a whisk broom and an ice pick, another bone is discovered. Once out of the ground, the bone may be fragile, and to get back to the lab safely, it needs protection, a plaster of Paris cast for the trip. That way, anything that shakes loose stays in the cast. When dinosaurs roamed this area 80 million years ago, the landscape was a lot greener, and this was a shallow lake.
As we look at this lake bed, we can follow it over to the cliff over there. We can see the lake bed sitting on top of a river. We follow it around, and right out here in the middle of it is an island. On that island is a nesting ground, a dinosaur nesting ground.
Horner's research team has discovered 5 different types of dinosaur eggs near here. He took his colleague, Bob Makala, and 2020 producer Eleanor Prescott to a newly discovered nesting site. If you weren't looking for dinosaur eggs, you'd walk right past it.
We apparently have here, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
After having been buried for millions of years, these eggs have once again come to the surface. Relics of a prehistoric era. On this spot, a colony of dinosaurs made its nests. Today, the silence of the site is absolute. Yet there are so many varied dinosaur fossils underfoot, it staggers the imagination.
We have taken just out of this one little pit right here about 3,800 bones.
Even when you've been told this is a dinosaur graveyard, you may find it hard to spot the bones. It all sort of looks like a small gravel pit.
There's a really nice one sticking out right here, and it's almost...
Scientists believe that a herd of 1,000 dinosaurs, adults 25 feet long and juveniles 8 feet long, died here in a volcanic mudslide like the ones near Mount St. Helens.
This is the end of a tibia, right in here, and the tibia is this bone in your leg, and this particular animal was about 8 feet long.
By the time I arrived just a few hours later, it had begun to snow, making the already bleak landscape even more austere. I had hoped to be able to dig out a dinosaur bone myself, or perhaps even discover more eggs. But the weather put an end to those plans. Still, there was something I wanted to see for myself, and a freak snowstorm wasn't going to keep me away.
Scientists call this hill Egg Mountain, and they jokingly talk about skiing Egg Mountain in this part of the country where winter comes early. Well, it's not much of a mountain, really, compared to the Rockies over this direction, but from a scientific standpoint, it does represent something of a pinnacle. Scientists have taken 350 dinosaur eggs from this site.
Despite the snow, Jack Horner was eager to show me this extraordinary nesting ground.
Each one of these stakes represents a place where we have taken out a clutch of eggs. Some of the clutches are only 4 or 5 eggs. The largest clutch we have is about 25 eggs.
The weather was so harsh, it seemed hard to imagine that something as fragile as an egg could survive millions of years in this place, even as a fossil. The next morning, in the workroom of the Museum of the Rockies, I had a chance to see just what it means to find thousands of dinosaur bones. The shelves are filled with big bones. Little tiny bones fill the drawers. This small bone is called the quadrate.
It's actually the hinge for the lower jaw, and this is the quadrate for a hatchling, a baby that's just hatched out of the egg. And this right here is the quadrate of an adult.
That stunning size difference tells scientists a lot. Horner thinks some adult dinosaurs may have cared for their young in a sort of primitive family life. He has found several nests of babies. In one nest, each baby was over 3 feet long.
We know that the hatchling size is a foot long. So it suggests that those babies had stayed in that nest from the time they hatched until they were 3 feet long.
And a parent might have brought food to them.
I think so, and the reason I think that is that the mother dinosaur, the father dinosaur, these are dinosaurs that are 20 or 25 to 30 feet long. A little 1-foot dinosaur doesn't have much chance among those.
What could be more fragile? Only an unhatched egg. And this year, Horner's team discovered the first egg embryo ever found in the United States. The marks on the exposed surface are tiny bones. Before the embryo could hatch, scientists believe a minute crack developed and mud as fine as flour seeped into the shell. Horner decided to see if anything remained inside the egg by using the most modern medical technology, computer axial tomography, a CAT scan.
When this thing is scanned, what do you expect or what do you hope to find inside it?
Well, we know we know there's an embryo there. And what we're looking at is fossilized cartilage. And it'll be interesting to see what parts of the skeleton were in fact even cartilaginous at that time.
We'll be anxious to see what it reveals when we put it.
I'm anxious to see that too.
Finally, everything was ready.
Okay, and we're going to set it this way.
This would be the first ever CAT scan of a dinosaur egg. But first there were some routine formalities.
What should I call this egg?
Does it need a first name?
Yeah,
How about if we call it embryo?
okay, embryo egg. I'm going to push start scan. It's going to start taking a picture, but you won't see the picture for 2.5 minutes.
Would this work? Would space-age technology enable us to see anything across the millions of years? Would there be a fossilized embryo in the egg? Well, on the black and white screen, there didn't seem to be anything.
I wonder if we could see better on the colors.
Yeah, let's try that.
Here on the large color display, tiny differences in the density of the rock would be displayed as different shades of color. I wondered if there could be anything left of the embryo after 80 million years in its egg. One last adjustment, and suddenly there it was, a shadowy, lighter image in the middle of the egg.
We've got the back end of the little dinosaur, probably. We're coming back around over the back. We've got the pelvis. We've got one leg coming out, and that leg is in the same position of the tibia, the bone that we see as a leg bone, isn't it?
I suppose that creature is naturally curled up in a fetal position.
Yes, it is.
Jack Horner's smile was the only hint of his excitement. Perhaps that's because spotting the embryo inside the egg was the easy part for Horner. Now the hard work of interpretation begins. Perhaps this extraordinary egg will explain why the species became extinct. Or maybe it will solve some other mysteries of the dinosaurs.
The chances of getting this kind of preservation of the embryo intact and us finding it is probably about 1 billion to 1.
Incredibly, just a few days ago, Professor Horner found a new clutch of eggs and over a dozen more dinosaur embryos. We could tell you that we'll follow this exciting story from week to week, but after 80 million years, I don't see any great hurry.